How's it going here? Welcome back to the channel. And today I want to go through my year-and-a-half update and experience of using the original Samsung Galaxy Fold here. I unboxed this back in December of 2019 and I've been using it almost every day since. I mainly use this to consume media, watch videos, check social media, the occasional gameplay, etc. So not as my main device, obviously. I go through a ton of different phones, but I do use this because I like the big display. But you know, about being a year-and-a-half old, some people might wonder how it's held up, and so I primarily kept it in the case that came with it. It's basically a shell case, so it's not going to give any kind of real drop protection, but it does protect it from scratches. And I think it's done a good job. I'll show you a little bit later. We can see there it's the original Fold case that came with the phone. You can see the Fold branding right there, and I really like the carbon fiber look, and I like that it doesn't add any bulk. I think other people may want some protective cases from drops and whatnot, but I'm not taking this out every day, and I primarily use it indoors. So this shell style cases served me well over the years, or the year and a half, and it's really protected it from scratches, which is its main purpose. So I can take this off and show you. So we can look at the back here, and there's really no scratches on this, nothing that I can perceive with my own eye. Might be tough to see on camera, but being so glossy and reflective, which I don't really like, to be honest, which is why I keep the case on. But again, no scratches there on the back, nothing on the aluminum sides from what I can see. I'll take off the front as well. You can see what the front looks like. There's no scratching on the front display at all. And there's the hinge. Right, so this is kind of like their first, maybe 1.5 try, maybe almost their second generation try, considering they recalled it and redid it again. But kind of seriously, their kind of first real market try at a folding device and this kind of first generation hinge. And so it's really meant to be just opened or closed. So once you open it, it kind of just breaks apart, right? And it's very floppy like this, very loose, because then it'll just lock into place. So it's really meant to be locked into place and be used wide open, or just to close the phone, and not like the new Fold 2 where it has that new hinge design where it kind of holds multiple positions. It's not like that. So I haven't really found it to be a problem because, honestly, I don't see myself using a device like this because half of this display is so small that I don't really know what I would really do with that. I just like it using it completely open. And so as far as hinge durability, it's been very good because over the year and a half, I'm opening and closing this multiple times a day because anytime I want to use it, I'm opening it all the way. I don't really use that continuity thing where when you have it open and then you want to close it and continue on the outside, I have it set up to just turn the phone off, because for me, when I open it, I want it on, and when I shut it, I want it off. And so I'm always folding it. I'm not babying this thing. I'm just opening, I'm closing all the time, and the hinge has held up perfectly fine. There is some creaking, but it's been like that since day one. It's just part of how the hinge is designed. But it doesn't feel cheap. I don't really feel concerned about that. And obviously, as we look around this, you can see it has a Type-C port on the bottom, but it has 2 speakers. So one on the bottom and one on the top. And they're really loud speakers, and they're very good. And I like that they're on both sides, so you get dual speakers. And that's what you're going to want from a media consumption device. And we'll test out the speakers later. I'll give you a listen to that. Unfortunately, no headphone jack. That would have been nice, considering how thick the device is. Would have been nice for them to include a headphone jack. It does have that side-mounted fingerprint reader. You can see the SIM slot with the volume buttons and the power button, and that just side-mounted fingerprint scanner, so no in-display scanner. But this thing has worked pretty well, considering. Not the fastest, but it definitely unlocks the device. And for all you lefties, I'm a lefty. I configure my middle finger there on my left side to open it, and reaching over. And being so narrow, it's really easy to reach across. It's not like I'm straining myself. All in all, not a bad fingerprint scanner. Not the best, but it definitely gets the job done. And if you don't like that, there always is face unlock. So if you open it up, it'll scan your face, and I think I have to enter my PIN first, but it will unlock. So we'll do that and try to get my face on camera. So there you go. So try to angle at my face, and it unlocks. So that's the general hardware. And as far as display, of course, the outer display, like I said, was one of the main complaints that people had about this. It's just really small. 4.6-inch 720p AMOLED display on the outside. And so launching something like Twitter, you can see how Twitter looks on this small display. Also, let's go ahead and try to compose something so you can see the keyboard. So that's the keyboard, and primarily I'm not doing two thumb typing on this. It's just too narrow, too small. I'll generally do swiping, and it generally gets the job done for me. I'm generally doing quick replies or something like that, so it's fine. It's not going to be a great main display to use, and I think it's just really meant for quick checks and notifications and quick glances and quick replies and things like that. But of course, a larger display would have been nice, but I'm almost never using this outer display anyway. I'm always opening it up to the main unfolded display, which is a full 7.3-inch AMOLED display, HDR10 Plus compliant, 1536 by 2152 resolution. So a very nice AMOLED display, considering it's that kind of folding display, and it's kind of that plastic sheet on top of it. You can see the crease if you look at it in angles, but like most people say, I'm not using it that way. I'm primarily looking straight on, and when you look straight on, you don't really see the crease at all. It just goes away. But it is there, especially if you're glancing at it at angles. And the other thing, when it's fully unfolded with this particular hinge, you can see here it's not completely flat. I always feel that it's kind of more at a V shape a little bit. It's not fully 100% flat. Nothing that really bothers me, but just something to note in case, certain people are particular about that. You can kind of see it there, right? It's not 100% flat, it's just a little bit curved upward. But even though it's kind of got that plastic coating on top, it is still an AMOLED display, and it gets very bright for both indoor and outdoor usage. I don't have a problem seeing the display at all, indoors or outdoors, so that's very good. It does have color calibration settings. Let's go up into display. The typical Samsung settings here, because it is running Android 11 One UI 3.1. So if you're familiar with the Android UI and One UI 3.1, it's going to have the exact same settings, exact same kind of available configuration. So if we go into screen mode, you can see here you can select from presets around natural or vivid, and then you can actually set the color calibration and white balance to how you want it, warmer or cooler, and you can even have RGB to fine tune that to the color temperature that you really want. So other things is that it does have a lock screen always on display. So if we go into lock screen, you can see here it does do always on display. Here we go, always on display here. So you can set that to being on, and we can always go show always. So you can at least see what that looks like here with your always on display. Typical Samsung always on display, it'll show the date, time, it'll have any kind of notification icons as they come in. So again, that's what it's gonna look like out on the outer display. I personally don't like always on display, but if you want to, it is there, and so I usually just keep it off. But of course, with this really large display, media consumption is probably the #1 thing that you're gonna use this for, and that's what I primarily use it for. So let's go ahead and fire up a video, and then let's go ahead and check out the display and the speakers. All right, so I've got a video queued up. I've got it at 4K, 60 frames per second here. We crank up the brightness. Brightness is at max, and the volume is all the way up. So let's take a look and listen. So there you go, a really nice looking display like you would expect from Samsung, even with this foldable format and that kind of plastic over it. You can tell, you can muffle these speakers if you cover them both up really, so if you have your hands pressed like that, they will muffle, but otherwise, having dual speakers on this, they're really loud and sound pretty rich and vibrant, so really nice display considering that new foldable display technology and some really nice set of speakers. All right, now talking about performance and how that's held up over the year and a half here. It's got a Snapdragon 855, which is still more than snappy, very quick, and it's going to handle pretty much anything you throw at it. 12 gigs of RAM really helps it out as well, and it has 512 gigs of onboard storage. No expandable storage, but with 512 gigs of storage, you're probably going to be good. The new Fold 2, I think, only comes with 256 gigs in a standard configuration, so you're getting double the storage with this original Fold, and I think that's great. You're not going to need micro SD expansion, probably. 12 gigs of RAM, 855 makes everything super fast. It does not have a high refresh rate display, but it still feels very smooth and snappy, and I think One UI 3.1 at this point is very well optimized on Samsung devices, and everything pretty much runs very fast, very fluid. I've got nothing in the background here, as you can see, and we can go ahead and here launch Twitter. You can see how long that takes to load. Not long at all, super fast in fact. And the scrolling looks nice and smooth even without a high refresh rate, and just scrolling normally, you can see what that looks like. No kind of choppiness even when loading the media. Very fast with that 12 gigs of RAM. Instagram, of course, is going to be just fine, really quick. Everything is fast to load. You can see the scrolling speeds here, perfectly fine. We can launch YouTube. YouTube launches instantly. So you can see here, I'm just launching, it's instantly popping up, tapping around, everything responds really nice and quick and fast. So, multitasking isn't going to be a problem. And speaking of multitasking, you can swipe in, and you can actually go ahead and do the triple application support here, so you can launch 3 apps at the same time. I have YouTube, Twitter, and Discord all at the same time. You can resize these things, so you can go switch it to the bottom and the top, and resize all the displays however you want. So you can actually have up to 3 apps running at the same time if you want, and you can group them together so you can launch them at a single tap. So multitasking on this is perfectly fine, actually works really, really well here, and you can do a standard split screen if you want as well. So, performance-wise, just everyday tasks using split screen, all that happens, and there's really been no slowdown or problem over the last year and a half for me. Similarly, gaming, and I show gaming on other lesser devices, it performs perfectly fine here. And if anything, utilizing this full display, it's been great with the larger on-screen touch controls. So gameplay is even better on this. It's a lot easier with those larger touch controls. And I think, like I'm showing you here in the sample, you're not going to find any kind of a lag. I don't see any kind of drop frames. Of course, as I say in every video, I'm not a big gamer, so I'm not playing crazy games or anything like that, but I'm pretty confident that any game in the Play Store is going to play just fine on this. And with the big 7.3-inch display, the gaming experience is great, along with those dual speakers. And for me personally, like I said, I don't play a lot of games, but I think everything looks good, runs nice and smooth, and I don't think you're going to have any kind of problems with any kind of gameplay. And like I said, I do love those on-screen controls. Makes it much easier to play. But of course, do let me know if you're seeing here anything in these samples. I try to give you at least some kind of a gameplay sample here, even though I don't play a lot of games, because I want you to see, and I know people do like to use their mobile devices for that. So hopefully this is providing some information and help to you. So let me know what you think about the gameplay and overall performance that you're seeing here. Now, as for software, like I said, this is running Android 11. It has gotten the One UI 3.1 update. It is on the April security update. It is now May, so it does not have the latest May update that are on some of the other Samsung devices. But considering this is almost 2 years old, at least a year and a half old, it is fairly up to date, and I think it's still receiving device updates despite probably some previous rumors that Samsung was going to stop the updates on this. So far, this is updated to April One UI 3.1, which means it has all the standard One UI 3.1 Samsung features that you're going to find on all their other devices. I've gone through complete software run-throughs on other phones, so I'm not going to do that here. But the standout features to me are that link to Windows. I think that's really great how Samsung is partnering with Microsoft for a much deeper integration with Windows-based PCs, so that you can use your phone, you can use your text messaging, get all your videos and photos and everything else directly through your Windows PC, so you don't really have to touch your phone if you don't want to. And to me, the standout feature here is DeX. So on all Samsung high-end phones, it has both wired and wireless DeX. And I think DeX on the Galaxy Fold is just amazing. I use it plugged in here on my monitor, and I can actually get real work done. So it gives you a full desktop experience, and it works great with that 12 gigs of RAM, Snapdragon 855. Full desktop experience is very fast and fluid. I don't have any performance issues, no heating issues, and I actually use it to get real work done for my day-to-day job. So I can get that real work done. I can do my video conference calls. I can do email. I can do my IMs, chats. I can do light Microsoft Office work. So anything that I'm really doing on a day-to-day basis, most of it I can actually do here. And I have worked on this device for my normal day job. I think the only limitation that you're going to have with using DeX for getting real work done is the selection of Android apps. Does Android support the apps that you need to get your work done? And do those apps support the features that you need? So for example, Microsoft Office, while they have been improving it, it doesn't have all the advanced features that I personally need in all my Microsoft Office apps. But for basic editing of those documents and PowerPoint slides, it's no problem. But if I want to do more advanced things, it's not quite there. So that's probably only going to be your limitation, is the software and the app support on that, not necessarily the device. And the other great thing about DeX is when you're using it with an external monitor in desktop mode is that you can actually use the device itself. So I can actually pull up apps on the actual Galaxy Fold device while I'm using the Samsung DeX experience, which is really awesome. All right, so now let's talk about battery life and how that's held up over the last year and a half. So this has a 4,380 milliamp hour battery, and while that's fairly large, I think a lot of people would probably want something 5,000 milliamps or larger to power this 7.3-inch display plus the outer display. But what I found is that I'm getting really good battery life. I think the software has been well optimized to the hardware, and I'm getting very good battery life. I'm consistently getting 7 hours of screen on time at least per charge cycle, and each charge cycle is lasting me 2+ days. So you can see here in the screenshot that I'm showing you right now, this was over 6 days of use. So it lasted me almost a week, and I got over 8 hours of screen on time. And you can see I do a lot of media consumption, like I was saying, YouTube, HBO Max, social media and Twitter, etc. So that's crazy. That's an extreme. What I found is that on average, I'm getting 7 hours of screen on time and 2 days off the charger. And so another one here, this was another 3 days, and again, almost 8 hours again. But again, heavy media consumption, Disney Plus, YouTube, HBO Max, Xfinity TV stream. I like that I can get my TV on this, by the way. And, all your usual social media stuff as well. All right, so now let's talk about the cameras. This was about a $2,000 device at the time with fancy foldable technology. For that kind of price, you're going to want the best possible cameras. And while the cameras in here weren't the best at the time, they were still pretty close. So it's got a 12 megapixel main camera, and it had that variable aperture. This is when Samsung was doing variable aperture. You can go anywhere between f/1.5 to f/1 over 2.4. So it can get pretty wide as far as the aperture to get some pretty good low light photos. And it's got OIS in that main sensor to help with low light performance as well as with the stabilization and getting good photos without a lot of handshake. You also have a 12 megapixel telephoto with 2x optical zoom, which is okay, but it does have OIS in it as well, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. Inside here, you're dealing with a 10 megapixel main sensor and an 8 megapixel depth sensor. So that's kind of why you have the cutout with those dual cameras plus all the sensors that people didn't really like with that cutout, but that's what you're dealing with inside, and another same 10 megapixel outer display camera. So those are the cameras you're working with. And we can go ahead and launch the camera app, which is basically a standard Samsung camera app here. You're gonna have the familiar UI that all Samsung phones have, and all the standard camera modes. So you're gonna have auto photo and video, you have night mode, you have portrait video for both the front and for the inside and the rear cameras. You got portrait video, super slow motion, and you got a whole bunch of other stuff, pro video, pro photo. So you have full control over your photos and videos on these cameras, slow motion, hyperlapse, food mode, all the standard camera modes from Samsung. For video, you still have the one-tap access to changing the resolution as well as the frame rate, so you can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second video on the rear cameras, 4K 30 on the inside and the outer cameras. And it does have the feature that carried over from the Fold 2 now, is in the original Fold, where if you tap this, you can actually go ahead and use the outer cameras here for the taking selfies. So you can see the viewfinder there on the outer display. You can hold up your palm just like this, and it'll recognize it and take the photo. So you can see here, there you go. So you've got all the standard Samsung features plus the fancy outer display viewfinder feature that carried over from the Galaxy Fold 2. One-tap access to changing all your lenses. So pretty good and more than capable set of cameras. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the photo and video samples so you can see for yourself. So there you go. That is my 1.5 year update on the original Samsung Galaxy Fold, how it's held up, what my experience has been like over that period of time. And like I said, it's been really great, and I still think it's a very good device. I still use it every day. Any other questions or comments that you have on the original Fold that I didn't answer in this video, leave them down below and I'll try to answer what I can. So again, that's my 1.5 year update. Hope you found it useful. And as always, thanks for watching.